Senate Intelligence Committee released a torture report today, and it is just a 500-page summary. The overall report is 6,300 pages. They took 5 years to put this together. It is exhaustive. They covered everything you can imagine. They talked to all sorts of witnesses. They looked at all the documents. The bottom line on the report is torture does not work. It didn't work in any of the cases. So let's get into some of the details. First of all, Democrats are releasing this now, but some Republicans are also on board, including Lindsey Graham and John McCain. And John McCain says that the torture we did stained our national reputation. And he's absolutely right about that. Obviously, as a man who was tortured himself, realizes that's not the right way to go, and that's certainly not the American way to go. So it was good to see him on the right side again. Now, the details of the report. First of all, the CIA said, we did enhanced interrogation on about 30 people or so. In reality, it turns out to be about 119 people, so 4 times more people than they actually let on. They said, the black sites where we reopened the former Soviet gulags in Eastern Europe, well, at least we didn't do torture there. Wrong again, Bob. Yes, they did. There's evidence that they did do torture and enhanced interrogations in those black sites. But most importantly, get a load of the gruesome nature of the torture. Now, some of the stuff you already know, the waterboarding, the pushing, the shoving, and all the other things that have been documented, right? But apparently they also threatened sexual abuse of the detainees with a broomstick, and they did rectal hydration. You obviously understand what that means, right? Water up your rectum, obviously significant amounts, obviously in a way that is not pleasant. And if you don't call that torture, I don't know what you call torture. I mean, I know that Rush Limbaugh said, there's just some frat house antics. Is that what Rush Limbaugh is doing in his house? I don't know, okay? But obviously this is torture by any definition. And not only did they do it once or twice, they did it for days on end, and sometimes for some detainees for weeks on end. So now the CIA said, no, but you don't understand. In at least 20 cases that we can show you, we have evidence that it worked, and we actually got great evidence that led us to capturing detainees and Osama bin Laden. So what did the Senate do? Well, they looked at that evidence, and they found out totally not true. So in any of the cases that there was information, it was obtained before the torture. It was obtained through other methods, not through the torture, okay? Again, it says 6,300-page report. They looked at all of the evidence. Now, in most of the cases, it was ineffective and they didn't get any information. And in some portion of the cases, they got inaccurate and fabricated information. Why? As John McCain points out, and every expert in the field points out, if you're being tortured, you'll tell them anything to get them to stop torturing you. So it turns out in the 20 cases the CIA thought was the best for them, there was no evidence that it worked. Now, how about bin Laden? We see in Zero Dark 30 and all the Republican claims and the CIA claims, we used torture to get important information like getting bin Laden. Once again, totally fabricated. The reality is we got the information about bin Laden's courier when he was in foreign hands, held by a foreign government, not by us, and before any torture was done to him. So the courier info was not obtained through torture. It was obtained before the torture when we were not holding him. So don't let anybody tell you otherwise. There's a 6,300-page report explaining that exactly, okay? So it was all a lie in that sense. Now, there is one part that I agree with the CIA on. Now, when asked to defend the report, the CIA says, first of all, you can't disprove its effectiveness. We got general information that could have helped people. I thought it was one of the worst defenses that I'd ever seen. So that part is nonsense. But the second part, when the Senate says, you went beyond your mandate and you did enhanced interrogations beyond what the Bush administration wanted you to do, so you misled the Congress and you misled the White House. There, I think the CIA has an excellent case to make. They said, no, you guys told us to do this. And they were worried about being hung out to dry in the first place because of politics. So the reality is, you got to pin this on the people who actually ordered it. And so that was Don Rumsfeld, Dick Cheney, Condoleezza Rice. There are memos where Dick Cheney and Rice say, no, continue the enhanced interrogation. And why did they write those memos? Because President Bush, for example, on June 26 of 2003, on a UN day to recognize victims of torture, said, "We are going to lead this fight to make sure there is no more torture in the world." At that day, according to the internal memos, the CIA panics and asks the administration, "Wait a minute, we're doing torture. Are you going to throw us under a bus?" And they say, "Oh, no, we're just kidding, man. We're not telling the truth to the public. No, you keep doing exactly what you were doing." Condoleezza Rice is on that memo. Dick Cheney's on that memo. And of course, the guy ultimately responsible for all this is George W. Bush, who knows that the torture is happening. Now, waterboarding has been torture all throughout history, even if he doesn't know about the rectal hydration and all the other specific elements of the torture. But they knew the enhanced interrogations were previously called torture. He goes out in public and pretends to be in favor of victims of torture. And then behind the scenes, they reassure, and they actually had to do written reaffirmation to tell the CIA, continue to do your torture. Don't listen to what we're saying in public. The CIA not only had to get that reaffirmation from the administration, but had to tell the press secretary for the White House, hey, don't say that we're doing, quote, humane treatment of detainees anymore, because that's not remotely true. So that's when the Bush administration stopped saying they were doing humane treatment, because the lies got out of hand. Now, if they had real political will to hold the people accountable for this torture that was illegal, immoral, and ineffective, they would hold Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld, and Rice accountable. But of course the politicians aren't going to do that. So they're right to blame the CIA for the torture, but they're not right to blame them as the ultimate source of those decisions. That was the White House.